Thank you very much, Katie, and I'm just a state representative. I have no desire to be a senator anytime soon. I will leave that up to Senator Roussan and Senator Hooper. Thank you all very much for being here this morning. Jordan Belliveau should be celebrating his third birthday today. Instead, we're here today to try to pass meaningful legislation to help make sure there's not another kid that dies a tragic death like he did. To say I'm disappointed in the actions of certain senators in blocking this bill last year that would have saved kids' lives would be an understatement. I will be filing this bill again this year in the House and will be joined by Senator Roussan in the Senate. Thank you, Senator Roussan, for your commitment to the vulnerable kids of Florida. I would like to thank my other colleague that is here today, Senator Ed Hooper, who I had the privilege of working for as his aide for several years during his time in the Florida House. Additionally, I would like to publicly acknowledge and thank the Largo Police Department and their chief, Jeff Undestad, for the help that they have given me in drafting this bill last year and in the days since. I would also like to publicly recognize Dr. Jim Lewis as well as Miranda Hostetler, who is a 21-year-old young lady from Clearwater who last year in the days following Jordan's tragic death, started an online petition that gained over 10,000 signatures, and that is how I met her. So Miranda really is the one that got this ball rolling last year. Today I would like to announce that I have purchased the domain www.jordanslaw.com and have started a website to bring attention to this bill. This website is now live. Citizens across Florida can access this website, learn about baby Jordan and other tragic cases similar to his, and sign a petition of support for Jordan's Law. This information will be used to let Floridians know which Florida senator tries to block this bill at any point along the way next year. I will not leave any stone unturned in trying to pass this bill next year. This bill is by far my highest priority. My constituents did not elect me to go to Tallahassee to make friends. They elected me to get things done, and frankly, there is nothing more important that I can do than to pass this bill into law. And with that, I would like to introduce Senator Darrell Roussan, who is my counterpart in the Senate.
Thank you, Representative Latvala. My name is Darrell Roussan. I'm the state senator for District 19. I want to thank Representative Chris Latvala for his hard work on this bill last session. And I must remain the eternal optimist in hoping that it gets through the Senate this year. One child's death is one death too many in Florida. We must ensure that Florida has provided all the tools in the toolbox when it comes to protecting our most vulnerable. Jordan Belliveau's death was tragic and unnecessary. His death shines a spotlight on the inadequacies of our broken child welfare system. His death was caused by a lack of communication between law enforcement and DCF. This bill corrects these communication issues and provides additional training to those involved in the child welfare system. It also provides more mental health services to families with young children and gives law enforcement a centralized tool to report child abuse. Specifically, it invites communication between DCF and law enforcement. It requires training on the recognition and responses to head trauma. And for those receiving child welfare services for families with dependent children, they will receive mental health services, which is too important. And then lastly, it allows DCF to select up to 3 agencies to discuss improvement of the case management system. It will mandate communication between FSFN, which is Florida Safe Families Network, and FCIC, which is the Florida Crime Information Center. These 2 entities, automated networks, were not communicating before, but this bill will require that type of communication. And I want to thank Senator Ed Hooper for standing with us today, and he'll be an ally for me in the Senate, and Chief Undestad for what you and your men are doing in the field every day when it comes to these kinds of cases. we hope to give you more tools to operate so that it protects lives. And then again, let me mention that this will be a priority bill. And along with Representative Latvala, we will work hard. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 sessions to get a bill through both chambers. It should not have taken that last year, but we're going to work like the Dickens to make sure it gets through this year. Thank you.
I don't feel so bad having to put my glasses on now. Tough act to follow with these two gentlemen. Thank you all for showing up today and participating in this event. A lot of things the senator brought up I won't repeat, but I would like to add a couple of things for us. Over the past 2 years, we've had 2 children killed here in Largo. The reason why we're here today is for 2-year-old Jordan Belliveau, but we also had an 8-month-old William Hendrickson that we don't want to forget either. These were tragic cases that hit close to home. They're extremely difficult for officers and our community. Jordan's Law is part of the solution, and it will help protect the state's most vulnerable population of our children. They're from birth to 5 years old. As the senator mentioned, the communication, I think, is key as far as getting the agencies to talk and provide information sharing. Brain injury is a leading cause of death and disability from child abuse and neglect in Florida. Jordan died from abusive head trauma, but head trauma alone is not the only form of brain injury. Will died from extreme heat causing head trauma. The body and brain of the young child can increase temperature 4 to 5 times faster than in an older child. Jordan's Law will require agencies like ours and caseworkers and parents to get the training that they need to recognize the warning signs of brain injuries in babies and toddlers. This safety-focused parenting and decision-making are going to be part of the solution. I'm also proud to announce that on October 25th, the Largo Police Department and St. Petersburg College will be hosting or sponsoring Dr. Jim Lewis as he presents Jordan's Law, bringing science to child safety. This is going to be a 3-hour training that will present practical neuroscience for those looking after our children, and will be available for free to 500 law enforcement, child welfare, excuse me, guardian ad litem, and professionals. This training will have the potential to save lives. And in closing, I'd like to add that Jordan's Law will play a crucial part in protecting children in Florida, and I hope we can all work together to make this a reality. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. And first of all, Chief, thank you for your hospitality and your agency and the importance of this legislation. I'm State Senator Ed Hooper, representing District 16, Pinellas and Pasco County. And I'm here today because I want to tell you how proud I am of Representative Latvala for the years we worked together, to see that he cares this much about keeping kids safe, that I haven't told him, and Senator Roussan, I will do whatever I can in the legislature to make sure that this bill passes and is signed by the governor. At the end of the day, we deal with about 3,000 bills every session in the state legislature. If we can't keep our kids safe, we don't need to be in Tallahassee. We need to come home and do something else. So my commitment is to make sure that I can do everything possible in my means to help get this bill passed and to help save a kid's life. And in my 28 years as a firefighter and paramedic, kids' safety is important to me, and my commitment to Senator Roussan and Representative Latvala is I am yours. You use me as you need to, and I commend you for your efforts. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability among all forms of child abuse and neglect. And yet Florida, like other states, has never required education in brain injury in the child welfare system. That is until now, until Representative Latvala designed and sponsored Jordan's Law. As you know, this law was named in memory of Jordan Belliveau, who died from abusive head trauma in early September 2018. This condition, while often serious and deadly, is only one of 5 types of brain injury that are widespread in our child welfare system. But most of you don't know this other important fact. In fact, I just found out about this from the National Center on Shaken Baby Syndrome contacting me after seeing an article published in the Tampa Bay Times that I wrote in early June. When this bill is finally passed, Florida will become the first state in the country to have mandatory brain injury education for all child welfare professionals. That's something we should be proud of. But when Jordan's Law was allowed to stall in the state Senate this past spring, several visionary leaders got in touch with me, and they all asked the same two questions. Why do we need to wait another year, hoping that this bill will finally pass? And they also asked, why can't our people have this training now before there's another Jordan Belliveau? The very first of these leaders to contact me was Chief Jeff Understad of the Largo Police Department. And so, through the sponsorship by the chief, and with the help of the department's victim advocate, Colleen Cheney, we will have the first Jordan's Law Brain Injury Education Seminar on October 25th. The St. Petersburg College, through President Williams and the Provost, Stan Vidito, have made the 525-seat Arts Auditorium in Clearwater available to us. Professionals from 15 child welfare agencies in Pinellas and Pasco counties will attend this training. But that's just the beginning. Now our state Senate urgently needs to complete the work begun by Representative Latvala and his colleagues in the House. The time is past due to bring science to child safety for our entire state by endorsing Jordan's Law. Thank you.
Any questions?
Why, this seems like a bill that's a no-brainer, that shouldn't be controversial in any way whatsoever. What happened in the Senate that made it stall?
I would point out that there are a lot of bills, as was mentioned by, I believe, Senator Hooper. Roughly 3,000 bills get filed every year. Many of them don't pass for multiple reasons. The Senate chairman decided, for whatever reason, to, in the first committee that it was referenced, to not hear it for about a month. A month into session, when she ultimately heard it, it was passed unanimously out of her committee. It then went to the next committee, passed unanimously. But that delay slowed down the process and thus really killed it.
Who was that chairperson?
Lauren Book.
I mean, is there politics at play there?
I would guess that there was politics, and you would have to ask her. I'm the I'm the pre-K through 12 education chair in the House, and I will tell you that the week prior to her hearing my bill, I passed out a budget that included her budget request for Lauren's kids. And so the week after is when she heard my bill.
What obstacles do you think you're going to face this time around?
I would just be speculating. I have a lot of good senators, including two that are standing with me today that will be helping me. So I'm optimistic that this year will be the year that the Florida Senate will pass it.
So did it not come out of committee last year? It never actually made it for a full vote?
It was referred to 3 committees in the Senate, and it passed the first 2. The third committee, I don't believe they ever heard, I don't believe it was agended in time for them to hear it. I would point out that the rules chairman in the Senate could have waived the rules to bring it directly to the floor. She did that on multiple bills. In the final week of session, she chose not to do that with Jordan's Law. And so that would be a question for the Senate Rules Chair. No, ma'am, that's Elizabeth Benacuesto.
How frustrating has this been for you? I mean, you're trying to protect kids.
Well, it's very frustrating. And, Tallahassee is a very political place. And it's driven by politics and personality and vendettas. And due to, past events, I certainly expect there to be retributions for some of my bills, which is fine. But don't do that on a child welfare bill. If you want to play games with some of my other bills, play games. But if you play games on a child welfare bill that's designed to protect kids' lives, then I will call you out every single time. And that's what I did this year. And I gave not only Senator Book, but other senators the benefit of the doubt and waited until after session to call them out for for what they did. And hopefully next year, there will be, different results. And I will give them the benefit of the doubt that next year will be the year that they get, they pass it.
What do you tell to your constituents who feel like they want to do something, they want to help? What can people do to make sure that this doesn't?
Well, I would urge them to contact their senators as soon as Senator Rouson files his bill in the Senate. There will be a Senate bill number, and then it gets referred to the Senate committee, and we go back up in September. And so in September, October, November, once committees start hearing bills, they can contact the chair of the committee that it gets referenced, asking them to put it on the agenda. Go to jordanslaw.com, sign the petition, so we have your email address, so we can email folks to tell them, here's the office number to the senator that has the bill in their possession. They can put it on their agenda for it to be heard.
I don't know how common it is to launch a website to get a bill passed, and call on people to do that. Do you think that is that necessary, and that's what it's gonna take to make a difference?
Well, after what happened last year, I decided that I was going to leave no stone unturned, and I was going to do whatever it took to get this bill passed. Another thing I want to point out is that not a single tax dollar is being used on this website through a political committee. So, the Florida Leadership Committee.
When you say that the website's gonna be used to call out anybody who stands in the way of this bill passing, what do you mean by that?
Well, through mass emails to the people that sign up and give us their emails. Through different, web ads if we have to do that, and, just different, marketing things that, would be done through mass emails, Facebook ads, and so forth.
There are a number of red flags that were missed in Jordan's case. How important is it that we call out the child welfare system and try and get this reformed, because we don't want to see another Jordan?
It's very important that we get this reform done. It is a priority. I understand the passion, I understand the disappointment of Representative Latvala. I'm disappointed too that this did not come out of the Senate and go to the governor's desk. But in a calm, reflective, deliberative type of way, I have to understand that sometimes important legislation takes more than one session. This, more than many bills, is about life and death of our most vulnerable. And I must remain the eternal optimist. The House passed this, and it's difficult to get things through the House. It being 120 members, sometimes different political persuasions and philosophies and beliefs about priority. But the Senate, as much as we're 40, and when 3,000 bills get filed, sometimes you run out of time. And I would hate to disparage some of my fellow senators, but this will be a priority. I do believe it will come through this year, but I do understand the passion and the disappointment of Representative Latvala.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way the system and the law are set up, they don't really want to take children away from families. Does it need to be easier for that to happen?
There needs to be better communication. Jordan Belliveau was under reunification services at the time he was returned to his mother. There were signs that were missed. There were symptoms that were missed. There was lack of communication, so that one agency did not know the non-compliance of the parents with the case management plan. This bill seeks to shore that up. As long as there are human beings behind agencies of government and even behind law enforcement badges, we will have mistakes. But we can reduce the number of mistakes by allowing DCF to select up to 3 agencies to improve the case management plans. This is what this is about. It's about saving lives of our most vulnerable, children who can't speak, but trauma can speak. And we must take recognition of that and work hard towards it. I'm proud to work with you again this year and building allies and relationships to get this thing done, finally done.
Senator, you said during your comments that it invites communication between DCF and law enforcement. What does that mean exactly, invites?
Well, I should have used a stronger word. and instead of invited, should be requires.
How does it do
The Florida Safe Families Network, which is an automated system of information, will be able to communicate with the FCIC, the Florida Crime Information Center, so that there's cross-information going to important agencies if the signs are recognized. Current law does not create that communication, that connection, and this bill will require that.
I just have some questions about the brain education. Can you just briefly talk about what do some of the warning signs look like for and what just kind of scratch the surface for us on what this education is going to look like?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, the lady who said the question, this was a no-brainer. I thought that was an interesting accidental pun. But nevertheless, so there's 5 forms of brain injury. People have brought up today. I do not know Senator Book. I wish I could have spoken with her. She started an organization called Lauren's Kids. It's about children who were sexually abused. At this training that we're doing with the help of Chief Undestad and St. Pete College at the end of October, there's something called hypoxia, where children are being choked and strangled, and oxygen is cut off from their brain by squeezing the carotid arteries. The number 1 type of abuse that causes that is sexual abuse. The Lawrence kids are sexually abused children. These kids are being choked. It is not diagnosed. Their trauma is being diagnosed. Sexual abuse trauma is obvious. What's not obvious is while they're being abused, someone's holding their hand over their mouth and nose so they're not breathing and getting oxygen to their brain, or their carotids are being squeezed and they're not getting oxygen to their brain. That's just one type of brain injury. So we're going to be teaching child welfare professionals. When I say child welfare professionals, I don't know if you realize what that involves. The judges, the state attorneys, the children's legal services attorneys, the case managers, the child protection investigators, from top to bottom. Florida is going to be the first state to have every participant organization in the child welfare system getting the exact same training on these 5 brain injuries. Representative Latvala mentioned Will Hendrickson. He died of heat stroke. Same thing you get in these so-called hot car deaths, but this was in a mobile home. People don't realize it's not just the outside temperature. It's not just, is this room poorly ventilated? It's what I think the chief mentioned, kids under 5, their brains heat up 5 times faster than an adult. So a child, even in a hot car, not a hot car, parents aren't leaving kids in hot cars. They're leaving kids in air-conditioned cars, and they shut the car off, they put the windows down 4 inches. Within 10 to 12 minutes, that car is over 100 degrees, and the kid's body and brain is over 105 degrees. People don't know that simple fact. Kids under 5 would have to be removed quicker, and not forever. Someone asked, should we make it easier to remove children? That's not the idea. This is just the first step. This is professional education. We have to do community education, but how do you educate the community about head injury and hypoxia and things like that? Heat stroke. How do you educate the community until you first educate the professionals who are overseeing the community of the child welfare system? So I hope that answered your question.